Hello and welcome to the latest MEED Global Data webinar this month, where we will once again be looking at the latest update on the Saudi Giga projects market. By far and away the most popular and pertinent of all the project market opportunities right now in the GCC region. My name is Edward James. I'm the head of content and research at MEED, and I'll be giving the presentation today. After the presentation, there will be time for a question and answer session. So if you do have any questions during the course of this presentation, you can click on the Q&A box in your Zoom menu bar, and you can enter your question there. And then when I finish this presentation, I will go through the questions and try to answer them one at a time. Now, one of the questions I get the most is, will we get a copy of this presentation? And the answer is yes, you will. As we go through this presentation during the next hour or so, you will receive an email with the PDF version of this presentation. So you will be able to look at it in your own time, share it with your colleagues and be able to assess it and all the data that's in it. At the same time, this presentation and webinar is also being recorded and will be put onto YouTube over the next week or so once it's been edited, and you will again have a chance to listen to it as a video as well. Okay, so let's go. Now, before we begin, I wanted just to highlight to you all one of MEED's premier and top events over the next 12 months, which is our Saudi Giga Projects 2024 Summit and the MENA Construction Summit 2024, which are on successive days in Riyadh on the 13th to the 14th of May 2024. Now, this essentially is an event very much focused on the Saudi Giga Projects program, with a focus on the individual projects themselves and the various different packages and contracts and procurement pipelines on each of those projects, with the clients on the projects, the Giga Project clients themselves, senior figures from them presenting their project plans. We had an absolutely fantastic first summit earlier this year. We had hundreds of attendees from around the region, around the world, and a large number of the Giga project clients as well. So if you are at all interested in the Giga Projects program, which I'm sure most of you are, otherwise you wouldn't be on this webinar today, then please just check out the landing page for this event. You can scan the QR code there with your phone, and you will be able to get more information on that. On the next day, we also have the MENA Construction Summit 2024, which is looking at some of the latest technology in construction and construction trends, as well as some more Giga project data and presentations. And we'll be looking at how the industry can deliver on this massive Giga projects program as well. So I personally, I really enjoyed the summit earlier this year. It was so useful. There was a lot of excellent new project information, a lot of excellent discussion, and it's well worth attending. So I hope I can see you all next year. Just to give you an idea of some of the speakers that we had at the summit, as you can see, we had a large number of the Giga projects represented. We had David Grover, for example, the CEO of Roshan. We had Anthony Aikenhead, CDO of Sports Boulevard. We had Red Sea Global, Ben Edwards, Group Head of Cost, Commercial and Procurement. We had Al Ula. We had the Seven, we had Ministry of Investment and Diriyah Gate and Boutique Group, and so on. So these are the kind of speakers that you can expect to see at the event. All of whom will be talking about and providing information on their project programs. Now, to continue with the same theme of the Giga Projects events and summits that we are maintaining and holding throughout the year, we have been holding advisory boards throughout the past couple of months, and until we hold the event again in Riyadh next May. And as you can see here, this was the most recent advisory board we held a couple of weeks ago in Riyadh, where we gathered a number of key stakeholders in the Giga projects program to discuss some of the key issues and challenges and opportunities facing the delivery of the program. So we are, as MEED, are in constant touch with the market to ensure that we are on top of the main trends, and we are ensuring that we are covering all aspects of the Giga projects program, and of course making sure that when it comes to the agenda and the program for next year's summit, that we have the right people on the right presentations with the right topics, all speaking on the day itself. So the Giga projects program in general and MEED's events on the program is certainly something that we are maintaining a constant communication on and are very active in. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the presentation itself. Just for those of you who are maybe not familiar, the most of the data in this presentation, if not all of it, is sourced from MEED Projects, which is our online projects tracking service. So we're tracking every major project in the region, and it's by tracking every single project, including, of course, the Giga projects, that we're able to quantify what is happening. And alongside its sister platform, MEED.com, our news, features and analysis service, we are able to provide you with the data that you see today, bottom-up data based on actual projects, tens, if not, and hundreds and thousands of projects which are constituting the data that you see today. So if you're interested in either of those products, please visit MEED.com or MEEDprojects.com to find out more. Okay, so I'm just going to do three very quick slides on the historical market performance in the region, not just for Giga projects, but overall for the GCC, because something very interesting is happening, which I think you'll all find very useful to hear. Okay, so as we all know, the market in the GCC projects market in terms of contracts award hit $173 billion in 2014. That's the all-time record. And it was similar number, $170 billion in 2015. Then the oil price fell. And as we know, project spending is tends to be quite heavily linked to the oil price. And the market declined year on year, reaching a low of $71.7 billion in 2020. Of course, that was COVID year. We recovered quite nicely in 2021 to $118 billion, but then declined further to $122 billion last year. Now, with oil very high last year, $80 a barrel plus, the hope and the expectation was there would be a big recovery in 2022 and that we would start hitting levels last seen in 2015 and 14, especially with the Giga project program in full swing. However, it didn't happen, which was, of course, very disappointing for the market. So I've got a question for you. This is the first of 4 questions I'm going to ask you all today. If you could just click the answer to this question. So in your opinion, has the projects market for your business in 2023 been better than 2022, the same as 2022, and worse than 2022? And this is, of course, with regards to the GCC. So if you can all just submit your answers, and then we should see the result. You should see question 1 pop up in front of you, Zoom polls. There's nearly 1,000 attendees today. We had 3,000 register. So that just shows you how much interest there is in the Giga projects program. Okay, so we should be able to see the responses now. And here we are. Okay, so in terms of the question, has the projects market for your business been better than 2022, the same or worse? And we can see that 2/3 of you very clearly, very large sample size, say that it's been better than last year. 21%, a fifth of you say it's been the same as last year, and just 13% of you say it was worse. So that's very interesting. Most of you say it's been better, which is very encouraging. And I'm very happy to say, if you look at this slide, is that the market has had a pretty amazing year so far. As of last week, there were approximately $151 billion worth of contracts awarded in the GCC. And with 2 months to go, the indications are that we are going to beat the 2014 and 15 numbers and have the best ever year for project spending in the GCC. So 2023 is likely to be a record. And that is really absolutely fantastic given the last few years' performance. And really, it's a testament to not just the Giga projects program, but also heavy oil and gas spending in Abu Dhabi, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, and also a return to form for the real estate market in Dubai as well. So you can see that historical data and the year-to-date data by country, and you can see that both Saudi Arabia and the UAE have had their best ever projects market performance, the best in history in terms of contracts awarded. You can see UAE is just under $60 billion of contracts awarded this year. That's far better than the $48 billion record last seen in 2014. And as you can also see, Saudi Arabia has had $65 billion of contracts awarded this year, and that's better than its best record, which was 2013, when we saw $58 billion of contracts awarded in the kingdom. So I just thought before we could look at the Giga projects themselves, I just wanted to paint the context of this year being a really exceptional year. You've got very high oil prices, but you also have the convergence of very strong construction and real estate spending in parallel to very strong spending in the oil and gas sector too, particularly Hail and Ghasha, Jafurah in Saudi Arabia, the Qatar LNG program, which have really boosted the market this year too. So absolutely fantastic year. And I think after all these years of decline, it's well deserved for the market. Okay, let's go on to the Giga projects. Now, most of you, if you've seen my webinars before, will be pretty familiar with this slide. There are 5 official Giga projects in Saudi Arabia, as you can see in the top left corner: NEOM, Red Sea Global, Diriyah Gate, Roshan, and Qiddiya. However, there are a number of other mega projects or Giga projects, depending on how you want to describe them, under the PIF as fully owned subsidiaries. You can see them there: Saudi Downtown, New Murabba, Al Balad Development Company, 7, Rural Medina, Boutique, Jeddah Central Suda, and so on. And as you may well see, there's a couple of new ones here. We've got Adara and Al Balad Development Company, which were really only announced over the last month or so. And I'll be looking at those in a bit more detail coming up later in this presentation. So you see this list of PIF's project companies is growing all the time. Of course, we also have some mega projects which are not under the PIF. We have the Royal Commission for Al Ula. We have Royal Commission for Riyadh Cities projects program, including the Metro Line 2 and Line 7 expansion, for example. We have Riyadh Sports Boulevard. We have King Salman Park. And we have Green Riyadh as, again, some just more examples. And you can continue that list: Saudi Arabian Railways, SAR, Aramco, of course, and many other major project clients. Now, the interesting thing is there are in the pipeline at least a dozen more Giga projects, mega projects under the PIF umbrella expected to be announced over the next few months. Just as we've seen Al Balad Development Company and Adara announced over the last month, you can expect to see many more, many very, very large ones as well announced over the next few weeks and months. So this is only just the beginning of this list. It's going to, by the time I give you the next update on this next year, this slide will be even more busy. It'll be even fuller than what it is now. You can probably expect to see some projects along the Gulf Coast, I would imagine. Perhaps also a couple of more projects in and around Riyadh as well. And they are some very exciting projects and very, very large ones in the works. So the addition of Adara and Suda Peaks, for example, and a couple of other new projects has increased the total value of the Giga projects program, as we define it in Saudi Arabia, to approximately $884 billion of which $60.6 billion have been awarded to date. So that means that less than 10% of the entire Giga projects program in the kingdom has been awarded. So it's an absolutely massive program. In fact, in some cases, the Giga projects program, the construction on some of these projects has yet to really start. Numaraba, for example, is really still at the earthworks and site preparation stage. Work hasn't really started at King Salman International Airport, for example. Suda Peaks hasn't started, neither has Adara. Rural Medina has only really started tendering for its main above ground works recently. So there's, in many cases, work is really still to kick off in many of these projects. On the other hand, you have projects like Red Sea Global, the Red Sea project, where the first hotel has opened and where 2 more are expected to open by the end of the year. So some are certainly more advanced than others. But I think this slide is also quite interesting. Of the $60.6 billion of awarded Giga projects to date, you can see that 2022 and 2023 year to date have really seen this increase in activity. And as you can see, there's been a sort of exponential growth in project spending on the Giga projects program since 2018. However, this growth clearly hasn't continued into 2023. While we might well exceed the 2022 number, we are not seeing the kind of doubling in projects activity that we might have initially expected. And this tends to indicate that the market may be having some challenges with delivery, with scoping for projects. We've been able to get the engineering, the labor, and the general talent, equipment, and materials to be able to deliver these projects. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Giga projects can kick on more in the following years. Logic would say, looking at the pipeline, that it will, but it remains to be seen whether the market will be able to absorb and help deliver such a large program. And no doubt some of you will have questions about that or thoughts on that. Just a reminder for those of you who may have turned up late, this presentation is being recorded, and also you should receive, if you've registered for this with your own email, you should receive this presentation in your inbox. If you haven't already, you will receive it over the next 20 minutes or so. And at the end of this presentation, I'll be taking questions. So please submit your question in the Q&A box, which you can see in your Zoom menu bar. Right, now, in terms of who are the biggest spenders on the Giga Projects program, well, we've got NEOM, which is the world's largest project at close to $25 billion of contracts awarded. Maybe no surprise there. Red Sea Global, which I said has already opened its first hotel, narrowing down on $10 billion. King Salman Park Foundation, which I'll talk about in more detail later, more than $5 billion. As does NEOM Green Hydrogen Company, which is building the region's first world-scale green hydrogen plant at NEOM, also spending a lot until now. Then we've got Sports Boulevard, Qiddiya, Roshan, and so on. And as I said earlier, some of these Giga projects are well ahead of others. Others are still at the much more initial stage, and you can see them there. Just in terms of recent contracts, what have we seen since the last update earlier this year? Well, as you can see, some major project activity spread across different clients. We've got the utilities package at Amala for the Red Sea Global. We've got lots of contracts at NEOM, Marine Works. We've got railways. We've got the time travel tunnel. We've got resorts and Formula One track at Qiddiya. We've got Roshan awarding a number of large contracts, as has Seven. So you can see here a lot of activity all round across the different Giga project clients. And just in terms of the largest single individual contracts, you can see here again, a lot of it is dominated by NEOM, as you see here, as well. A lot of tunnels work for the line, infrastructure, and railways as well. We've got the Six Flags theme park at Qiddiya. We've got the super basement for Darya Gate, and so on and so forth. And then in terms of the top contractors so far on the Giga Projects program, you can see that local firms have a big role to play. Nesma, Al Fanar, Al Mabani, Shibha Jazeera, MBL, Saudi bin Laden, Al Bawani, for example, have all been very successful in winning major contracts on the Giga Projects program. And indeed, if you look at the likes of Nesma, Al Mabani, and Al Bawani, as well as El Saif, you'll know that they are considered now national champions, having had received injections of capital from the PIF, which has invested in them. Leading international firms include Larsen & Toubro, WeBuild, and Archirodon, as well as FCC Construction, China Harbour, and so on. Okay, on to our next question. Again, the question should pop up. Is your business already working on the Saudi Giga Projects program, looking to or attempting to win work on the program, or are you skeptical or not interested in it? So let's see how you vote. It's all anonymous, by the way. We cannot track your response to the question. Just waiting for everyone to submit their answer, and then we can check, see what everyone is thinking. I imagine that there won't be many responses for the third answer, given that we are on a Giga Projects focused webinar. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. What have we got? Okay, so that's a nice sort of even split, almost 50-50 between those already working on the program and those looking to win work on the program. So it does show that a lot of you are still exploring the market and looking to come in, which is of course good news for the Giga Project clients who really are struggling to find the necessary developers, necessary contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers to deliver their program. So that's good to see that there's a good proportion of people still looking to win work. And only 6% of you are skeptical about the program. Right, let's go. Let's look at some recent developments since I last gave this webinar, and it's been very active. As I said, many more Giga projects to be announced, and this is just one of them, announced a month or two ago. This is Suda Peaks under the Suda Development Company, again 100% owned by the PIF. And this is a touristic mixed-use development across 6 different locations in Suda, which is in the southwest of the kingdom at altitude. And you can see here this project, which was announced, as I said, a couple of months ago, split into 6 different sites. You get a kind of idea about what they involve from the different images as well as the scope. You can see that Rijal, for example, is 80 hotel rooms, parks, and so forth. Sahab has 290 hotel rooms. There's a Jareen, which is all about glamping pods, basically luxury tents. Red Rock, 170 hotel rooms. Sabra, 180 rooms and 350 luxury residential units. And then Tahlau, which is the biggest, as you can see, residential units, a golf course, and nearly 2,000 hotel rooms, luxury, of course. So this is just another new project under the Giga Projects program. And again, very much touristic focused. It's a beautiful part of Saudi Arabia, actually, given that it's at high altitude and it's not cooler in the summer months, as well worth checking out. So that was one rather project. In the same area, in Abha, we have also launched very recently Adara, which is again another fully owned company by the PIF. And its first project is Al Wadi, which means the dry riverbed. And this is right in the center of Abha. And it's going to cost about $5.1 billion officially, covers 2.5 million square meters, and features 16 kilometers of waterfront and 17 kilometers of walking and cycling tracks, as well as 2,000 residential units. Now, Adara has been set up by the PIF as a real estate development company. And as such, this is just the first of, I imagine, many projects under its development program. which most likely will be focused in the Abha area. So you've got an idea here. There's not much more details about this project, or indeed the previous one, Suda Peaks. There's a few images which I've got here for you, but other than that, we'll wait and see how that develops. Another very recently announced project is the Al Waj Airport refurbishment. This was announced by Red Sea Global, RSG, just a couple of weeks ago. And this is the first of the dozen or so projects which they have announced. So we know that RSG has 12 more projects after the Red Sea and Amala projects, and this is the first one of those which has been announced. So this involves the refurbishment of the Al Waj Airport on the Red Sea coast, and makes sense because Red Sea Global, of course, has already developed its own international airport near the Red Sea project. So this is going to involve a new international terminal at Waj, as well as some upgrades to existing infrastructure. And as you may see here, there's going to be a new airline, Fly Red Sea, which is going to be the kingdom's first seaplane company. So the RSG recently held, a couple of weeks ago, their first ever official flight from Riyadh to the new Red Sea Global International Airport, and is really moving ahead again with this new project as well. So there's 11 more projects to be announced by RSG. I imagine we'll hear more about them over the next few months. Very exciting. Next, also announced fairly recently, is the Al Balad Development Company. This one is in Jeddah. This is basically involving the revival or the reconstruction, the historical reconstruction of the old city in Jeddah. And Al Balad is going to essentially act as a master developer, seeking to attract private investment as well in real estate. And the idea is to build within Jeddah in a very sort of in keeping with the legacy and heritage of the major port city. Not many details about this either, or images or renders on the project. It's going to be about 2.5 million square meters. With built-up area of 3.7 million square meters, and includes nearly 10,000 residential units, 1,800 hotel rooms, and 1.3 million square meters of commercial and office space. And of course, that sits alongside Jeddah Central, which I'll also be talking about in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. So that's just an example of 4 major new projects under the PIF program, which has been announced in the last few weeks, and certainly since the last presentation I gave on this in June, July, earlier this year. So the projects are keep coming, and I think it's fair to say that although we're on our $885 billion of Giga projects right now, we know about, I think it will easily pass the $1 trillion value for projects as they keep being announced. Okay, so now I want today to focus on 2 of the Giga projects. The first one is King Salman Park. In previous webinars, I've gone through Neom and Al Ula, Diriyah Gate, and Rural Medina, and a few others. So if you want to catch up on those, then the videos are on YouTube, and you'll be able to check them out there. But in this webinar, I'm going to go through some details on King Salman Park. Now, King Salman Park does not sit under the PIF, but it is still a massive project in its own right. And of course, the client is King Salman Park Foundation. So let's take a look at it. Essentially, King Salman Park is the world's largest urban or city park. It's absolutely enormous. I'm not sure if this sort of render gives an idea of the total scale of the project, but it is absolutely gigantic. I won't go through all the details here, but you can see it covers 16.9 square kilometers, for example. There's thousands of new residential units. There's going to be a lot of museums, a lot of sporting activity, something like 18,000 parking spaces, which I think is a world record for a single project. And of course, it's all really about focused on this very dense sort of green area, which is going to be absolutely fantastic to walk through, hopefully at all times of the year. So this is currently under construction. So essentially, this project is in the center of Riyadh, and what happened was that until fairly recently, this area in the center of Riyadh was King Faisal Air Base, a large military air base installation, bang in the middle of Riyadh. And what the government decided to do just a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, is to move the Air Academy and the air base to another part of the kingdom outside of Riyadh. And so a contract was awarded to dismantle the airbase and rebuild it somewhere else. And in this same location, this is where they have decided to build the King Salman Park. You can see on the left-hand side from Google Maps that the first major element of it, which is the Royal Arts Complex, awarded to MBL a year or two ago, is already well under construction. And on the right-hand side, you can see how the master plan fits into the empty sort of space there left by the airbase. The project is split into phases, 3 phases to be exact. The largest phase is phase 1. You can see here phase 2, which is going to be developed concurrently for phase 1 on the right-hand side, and then phase 3, apologies, this should say phase 3, not phase 1 in the north section, is going to come at a slightly later date. So very exciting project, at least $20 billion in our estimation, if not more. Now you can see here this ring here, this circle, and this is essentially going to be what you call the loop. And the idea is that you have these hubs around the loop with sort of landmark projects, and where really the hub of the project is. So you can start, you know, that the Royal Arts Complex is currently under construction. We then have various other elements. The visitor pavilion is also under construction here, visitor pavilion and nursery. Then we have the museum district, lots and lots of museums, like Museum of the Earth, Aviation Museum. We've got a new Grand Mosque as well. You can see here some details of that. So you've got various different hubs, as you can see here. And this is really where the center of activity is going to be in the project. So what are the different elements? Some more elements of the project. Well, we've got the Royal Art Complex, which is already under construction. I'll show you some images of that later. We've got the visitor pavilion and nursery also under construction right now. We've got multiple housing, residential units. You saw a golf course as well. Some retail elements, probably a mall or two. We've got of course, being a massive park, we've also got a lot of sports elements to it, equestrian center, skydiving, various sports courts, and so on, an aqua park, amusement park. And then we've got a really big focus also on cultural facilities, including multiple museums, as you can see here. So it's going to be a really fascinating, interesting project, and construction is now well underway, or they're still at the fairly initial stages. And then just again to re-emphasize the green element of this project, it really is about beautifying Riyadh, providing an outdoor space, and as you can see, it's absolutely massive, and it hopefully will be look good as this render suggests. Just in terms of the contracts, the major contracts already awarded, well, one of the most recent ones was to Nesma, and this is an absolutely massive project to basically build some of the landscape works within the loop. So that's basically this element here within the loop, and that is rather here within the loop, as you can see, and that is an absolutely massive area requiring a huge amount of water, distribution pipelines to make it work, as well as a huge amount of earthworks, enabling works, and of course the planting of vegetation, which is also going to be quite considerable. We've got the Royal Art Complex awarded a year 2 back to MBL, well under construction. Of course, we've got many major tunnels and bridges run by LSAFE and CCC, and various other contracts, which I won't go through each, but already quite a lot of work already awarded on this. Just to give you an idea of the progress on the project, this is the Royal Arts Complex. You can see here, as I mentioned, it's under construction. Very iconic and significant project there. You can see how close this whole area is to the center of Riyadh. We've got the Loop Bridge, as you can see here, which is clearly aimed at providing road access into the park and the 18,000 car parking spaces that we'll have. On the bottom right, you get an idea of the sheer size of the project, but the sheer amount of earthworks required to develop this. As you can see, different grade and above grade works, and you can see the contours of the beginning of the sort of vegetation planting areas, as well as the paths through it. And the bottom left, this is the operations and maintenance center, also, as you can see, quite well under construction. So this is right now sort of absolutely huge project ongoing in Riyadh right now, and unfortunately a lot of it is sort of boarded off. You can't really see inside it very well, but definitely something that we can all be very excited about visiting with our families in the future. Now, the next project I haven't touched on before is Jeddah Central. We saw that there was this new company called Al Balad Development Company for the heritage zone of Jeddah, and now we're looking at another PIF subsidiary, Jeddah Central, which is a bit older, and work has already started on it. It's about $20 billion, and essentially it involves the redevelopment of Riyadh, of Jeddah city centre. So it's involved some demolition of some of the older or more dilapidated structures, buildings in Jeddah, and it's essentially, as you can see here, going to be developed in 3 phases, with first phase completed by 2027. As you see, it's a mixed-use development with various cultural, housing, sports, culture, and entertainment areas. You can see 2,700 hotel rooms, 17,000 residential units, 10 entertainment and tourism projects, and 4 landmark projects, which we'll see in a second. These are the 6 districts which will form Jeddah Central, Central District, Marina, Sport, Beach, Cultural and Creativity, and Wellness District, which again, I won't go through each one, but you get an idea about what each one is going to look like and what each one involves here from these images. And as I mentioned, there are 4 project landmarks as part of Jeddah Central. First one is the museum, as you can see, built from an old power plant and fuel storage tanks as well. We've got the stadium, which I'm sure you've all seen announced in advance of Saudi Arabia's bid for the 2034 World Cup. And then we've got the Opera House, you see here, and then an oceanarium and coral farm as well. So it looks a really, really great project. And just going back to the World Cup, Saudi Arabia has already entered into the competition to host the World Cup in 2034. It must go to an Asian or Australasian state. And the only real competition we can see is from Australia. Australia has until the end of next week to submit a bid, or say it's going to submit a bid. And if it doesn't, then Saudi Arabia will host the World Cup. And then you can add the sheer amount of spending for that particular event to the list of the Giga projects, as you can next month when there is a decision to be made on the 2030 World Expo, which Saudi Arabia is very strongly positioned for. That will be in Riyadh. And again, if that if they are chosen, then there will be also absolutely massive spending on pavilions and associated infrastructure in the north of Riyadh up to 2030 for that event too. Just going back to Jeddah Central, here we are, phase 1, which is under construction. A lot of infrastructure works going there. Phase 2, here, phase 3, as you can see here as well. So already substantial works are underway. If you go into Google Maps, for example, you'll be able to see how a lot of these sort of older buildings have been taken down and construction beginning on the new development under. Just for those of you who are interested in Jeddah Central, like all the other Giga projects, you have to, if you're interested in bidding for the project or being a supplier or vendor of any sort, you need to go to the website of the client and go to their vendor registration page and then go through that process. A lot of the clients use SAP Ariba or Oracle as their vendor registration system, while others might use their own proprietary system. But as with all of them, you need to sign up with them individually. And it's important to bear in mind that these Giga projects do not have to use government procurement rules for how they procure and pre-qualify companies. So that's important. Each one procures slightly differently, and you do need to do your due diligence on that process. But also, once you've got the documents to submit to register for one of them, then you've got most of the documents you need to submit for all of them. Fortunately, there's no central procurement process for each of these projects. You do have to sign up individually, but it is quite an easy process. Okay, let's do the third question, please. Okay, this is a bit of a cheeky question here, but I'm interested in knowing your response. So there are multiple Giga projects, and I haven't been able to fill them all in. There's a 10-question limit on Zoom. But of the ones you can see, which one do you think offers you or your company the best Giga project opportunity? Now, you can only choose one, so take your time and let me know or let us know what you think. Is it NEOM? Is it Red Sea Global? Is it Russian? Is it the massive New Muraba project? Is it King Salman Park we've just seen? Or is it Al Ula? Let's have a look. Okay, I imagine we've got a fairly decent sample size now. So let's check out the answers, shall we? Interesting. Okay, so 60% of you believe that NEOM, the largest of the Giga projects, offers the best opportunity. So it's more than the rest of all the other Giga projects combined. Next up is Red Sea Global. 86 or 14% of you believe that's the best opportunity. Then Roshan, Diriyah Gate, Qiddiya, Ruwa Medina, New Muraba, Riyadh Sports Boulevard. Very, very interesting. I can see really the first one is based on, I guess, is based on the sheer size and number of opportunities. Red Sea Global is probably, in terms of the amount of work it's done, is closest to really completion of its first phase. Roshan 2 is pretty advanced, and some of them are like Ruwa Medina and New Muraba are very much at the initial stages. And I can just scroll down a little bit more. King Salman Park, 7%, interesting. Al Ula, just 1%, and Riyadh Sports Boulevard, just 1% as well. Very good. Okay, very interesting, very insightful. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so that's coming to the end of the webinar now. So I'm going to take your questions. I can see that I've already got 40 questions in my Q&A box. So please do not hesitate to submit a question. I'll try and answer them now. But before I do, just a reminder of our best-selling Saudi Giga Projects 2024 report. You do get a discount for attending today. As you can see here, there's a discount code as well. So you get an extra $100 discount. So really good offer, but it ends on the 1st of November. If you're interested, scan the code to find out more, table of contents and so on. It's pretty much like what you've seen today, but in a lot more detail, 400, 500 pages of extensive details of each of the packages, procurement pipelines, contact details of the key stakeholders and so on each of the 15 plus Giga projects. So certainly if you're interested in that program, then really check out this report. It really is absolutely fantastic and something that has been proven extremely popular this year. And just again, another friendly reminder, we've got various different aspects of the MEED Global Data business, which are used by our clients. We have MEED.com, the news features analysis service. We have MEED Projects, the projects tracking service. We have our premium intelligence reports, just like we saw now with the Giga Projects report. We have events, as I mentioned, we've got our Saudi Giga Projects 2024 event, a MENA construction event in Riyadh on the 13th and 14th of May next year, which I hope I can all see you at. And we also have a marketing solutions business, which helps you market your services and offerings through third-party events, research, and thought leadership and roundtables and so on. So bearing that in mind, this is my final question before the Q&A. We just list that up. And the question is, on which of these products would you like to receive more information, if any? Select one only, please. Would you like to receive more information on MEED.com, MEED Projects, Premium Intelligence Reports, or the Saudi Giga Projects and MENA Construction Summits 2024? Of course, you don't have to answer if you don't want, but if you do, please select one of them. Just a reminder, while you're doing that, this presentation is being recorded and you will be able to watch it online. And you should have received by now as well the presentation itself in your inbox, which you'll be able to share with your friends and colleagues. Okay, should we just see the response very quickly there before we go to the Q&A? Okay, thank you very much. That's great and really encouraging to see that many of you are interested in our event next year as well. So you've got the QR code on the original slide at the top of this presentation. Capture that and you can take you to the page where you can find out more about our event. Okay, so as usual, I'll take your questions. I will see if I can answer most of them. How have you defined Giga projects versus mega projects? Essentially, there is an ambiguity about what Giga projects actually mean. In Saudi Arabia, there are 5 official Giga projects, although they tend to be used interchangeably with other massive mega projects. And for the projects which we cover in our reports, for example, and which MEED generally considers as Giga Projects program, just go back to the beginning of the presentation, that slide of the Giga Projects. That gives you an idea of what is covered when we say Giga Projects. Any plan to make the same for Giga Projects in Qatar? So when we talk about Giga Projects, again, we're talking very specifically about Saudi Arabia. I don't personally describe projects elsewhere as Giga Projects because I think it's particularly relevant to the official terminology used in Saudi Arabia. But we do, of course, have extensive coverage on Qatar as well as reports on it. And, you know, we do, of course, take a very close look at Qatar as well as all the other GCC states. Right, question here about supply side constraints, which is a question, of course, I would expect, given the massive pipeline of projects. Do you think the market has already reached its capacity to deliver? I don't believe it's reached its capacity. I believe it's approaching its capacity. I think the markets always tend to adapt and will adapt over time, but in the short term, I think we are already seeing quite a lot of stretch in engineering and contracting capacity as well as materials and suppliers capacity. Just listening recently to a comment I heard from the PIF, they estimate they might need to see a doubling of labourers in the kingdom to 6 million from 3 million today just to deliver their program. And it certainly remains to be seen how where the clients, and not just the Giga Project clients, but Aramco, SEC, SWCC, SAR, and all the private developers, for example, manage to source labour and capacity for contracting and engineering. And of course, this is one of the reasons why so many of the big clients are going overseas to give presentations and try to attract international companies to come into Saudi Arabia to deliver this program as well. So are we near the peak in terms of capacity delivering? Difficult to say, but I would say in the short term, yes, we're probably getting to that point. Statistics on page number 7 is in $1 billion, or is it for governmental contracts, all types of contracts? Well, in this report, most of the figures are giving in dollars million, and they cover all types of contracts, not just governmental ones. These numbers for all projects or construction. Well, at the beginning, I was talking about all sectors in all GCC states, but during the Giga projects section, then it's just about the Giga projects, whether they are power or water or energy or construction projects or transport projects, they are Giga projects, so within the Giga project scope. What is the scope of construction? Construction for us covers buildings, so towers, villas, hotels, malls, schools, hospitals, etc. And transport covers things like infrastructure, earthworks, sewage networks, ports, roads, and railways and airports. Question, another very common one, is how is Saudi going to finance or pay for these projects? Very good question. Well, we know that the PIF is generally funding the first initial phases of each of these Giga project clients, and at the same time, there has been moves by the PF to, for example, issue green bonds to raise finance for these projects, but also from the Giga projects individually. We saw Red Sea Global raise a $3.5 billion loan, I think, last year. NEOM is in the market for some finance as well, and some of them have the ability to be able to either attract private investment or sell off plan, for example, like Roshan. So there is a combination of different ways which the approach is to finance these projects. But at the end of the day, it also goes back to the fact that the kingdom needs the oil price to roughly be above $80 a barrel if it really wanted to finance these projects successfully. Any lower than that, and there are going to be questions of whether the government, the state, PIF, do have the finance to obviously extend these massive capex requirements. So it is interesting. Of course, after a certain amount of time, after the infrastructure is completed, then some of these Giga projects will be expected to IPO and generate funds that way, but also to bring in private sector investment and earn revenues over time. So you can expect to start seeing some of the first IPOs, I think, over the next 18 months or so. Just checking out the questions. Is there a tendency for NEOM to slow down in any of its main regions? It's a very interesting question and a fairly sensitive one. So NEOM is clearly a huge project, $500 billion, and is comprised of multiple parts. Projects like Sindala Island, Shusha, and the other offshore islands as well now being developed. Of course, you've got Oxagon Port, you've got the green hydrogen project, and you've got the line. Well, both the line in terms of the spine and the railway, under the high-speed railway underneath, but also, of course, in terms of the modules above the line. And then you've got things like the new international airport, Trojena, of course, and the Gulf of Aqaba. Now, it does look like most of these projects are proceeding. Certainly, if you look at Trojena and Oxagon, some big contracts awarded recently. In terms of the line and the spine, then there is, which is probably the largest single element of the project, 170-kilometer long high-speed railway with a 500-meter, 400-meter long two buildings along the entirety of that route. That's probably the most technologically complex engineering in terms of engineering, and probably the most expensive element. What we understand is that they focus is now on building the first 3 modules, and then taking stock of the project once construction has started of those to evaluate whether or not to proceed fast track with later modules. So very much focused on the first 3 modules on the line at NEOM, and those of course are above the hidden marina area in the middle of the line. Can you please clarify how to start the vendor registration process with our Ballard development company? Very straightforward. With all of these Giga project clients, just go to their websites, click on the menu for vendor registration, or vendors or suppliers, sometimes it's called, and there you will have the opportunity to register. You have to fill out some details, and then you have to submit documents such as certificates of incorporation, registration details, tax numbers, and then some details about your business, what categories you're in, how many staff you have, your bank statements, and so on. So it's all the same with all of the Giga project clients. Just simply go to their website individually, and you have to register individually with each one. On contact details, information on these companies included in the full report. Yes, we have identified the key stakeholders, individuals in terms of project procurement and development at each of the Giga project clients, and provided details of them in the report. So given that Saudi is investing heavily on the eastern portion of the country, do they plan to do the same for the western part as well? Do they have any plans to add new ports into their projects? I think you may have got this mixed up. I think it's currently investing heavily in the western side, the Red Sea. Are they going to invest on the eastern side, on the Gulf Coast? I think is your question. And yes, they are. I believe there's going to be 2 Giga projects planned, one in Khafji near the Kuwaiti border, and the other one in Al Uqair. And there may well be one further southeast towards the UAE and Oman as well. And are there going to be new ports? Well, NEOM, or the Oxagon at NEOM, is the only port that I'm aware of. Saudi Arabia, of course, does have multiple ports, and I think that's really the main focus right now. And of course, Mawani, the port operator, is of course investing heavily in upgrading its existing ports in the kingdom, as well as bringing in private investment to develop and operate reports. Are the reports oil price sensitive? Yes, they very much are. And as I said, Saudi Arabia has done a lot recently to try and maintain an oil price above $80 a barrel. In fact, it's even cut production and has earned fewer revenues as a result. But that just goes to show how important it is. If the oil price was to fall considerably below $80, then there will be a real challenge to push ahead. As of course we've seen historically, it's not really contentious to say that. What is the forecast regarding meeting targets and delays? Well, as you know, most of these projects have set first phase completion dates. We saw Jeddah Central, for example, 2027. Others have sort of 2030 as the completion date. But what's most likely to happen is that there might well be a rephasing of the delivery schedules for these projects. So most of them will be completed in terms of their first phase or phases by 2030. But it's also clear that the market is never going to be able to deliver the sheer volume of work that's required by 2030. It's just not physically possible. So there will be certain elements of each project completed by 2030, but by no means all of them. And that means that this Giga project program is going to continue into 2030s and most likely 2040s as well. What's the tender process for each of these projects? Again, there's no, they do not fall under the Saudi procurement law. They have their own procurement and tendering process. But as a first step, you do need to register or pre-qualify with each Giga project client individually. Once that's done, you will receive the tenders automatically as long as you're registered for that particular category or are pre-qualified for it. Now, it's important to bear in mind that there are so many projects, so many clients, that there is a struggle generally to try and attract enough supply and contracting talent. And so these Giga projects do offer a very good opportunity for companies, particularly those wanting to enter the region for the first time. They are generally all quite happy to receive bids and registration from companies which haven't worked in Saudi Arabia before, especially suppliers. So it is a fantastic opportunity. Can you provide pricing for MEED projects? Not on the webinar, no, but we can contact you to give you an idea, because it does depend on the number of countries and sectors that you would want to subscribe to. Is the PIF planning to build new stadiums for the World Cup? Yes, absolutely. Well, rather than the PIF, it's actually coming under the Ministry of Sport. The Ministry of Sport wants to upgrade 6 stadiums or so, as well as build a couple of new ones. It would obviously need to for the World Cup. But interestingly as well, some of the stadiums have been passed on to some of the Giga project clients as well to either develop or operate. But yeah, there's going to be a big investment in stadiums. It's not like Qatar, where they had to be build several new ones, because of course Saudi Arabia already has some world-class stadiums, but many of them will need to be expanded and the capacity increased to meet FIFA requirements. I'm concerned about the geopolitical crisis in Israel and Palestine. Will this have an effect on the projects market with geopolitical issues spilling over? My personal opinion, and it's only my personal opinion, is that no, it won't. I don't see this crisis spreading into the GCC, simply because I don't think there's anything for anyone to gain by stepping in. So I'm personally and quite relaxed about potential spillover. Of course, it's a horrible situation right now, but I don't believe there is going to be a knock-on impact in the GCC as a whole. Question here, is Saudi Arabia going to proceed with the Jeddah Tower? So MEED exclusively revealed a couple of weeks ago that the Jeddah Tower, which is a 2-kilometer tower, 1-kilometer tower, the tallest tower in the world, will resume work this year. The tender bond, performance bond for Bin Laden has been pulled, and various different contractors from the region and the world have been briefed on the resumption of the work. So we expect some bids to be received by the end of the year, and then the new contractor or contractors will be appointed, and then they will hopefully complete the work. So that's very much back on. Okay, what about opportunities for engineering consultants and design firms? Absolutely, there is an enormous amount of work for architects, for engineering and design firms. Yes, some construction has started in some places, but in many other areas, their work has really only just begun. And whether it's concept design, master planning, or more detailed engineering, there is a huge amount of work and a huge amount of opportunities. In fact, I heard last week of just recently of a new concept master plan being tendered for a project, a Giga project, a very initial phase. So there is definitely a huge amount of work. And of course, many of these projects are also design build. So even for those kind of contracts, there is a lot of contractors who will need design firms to help them with that. What's the criteria for a project to be considered as a Giga project? It's a very good question. I think I've touched on this earlier. We've got 5 official Giga projects, so we'll start with those. And then we're really just gathering projects under the PIF as project companies as part of that Giga project program, even though their sizes range from 50 billion to just $1 billion. It's a catch-all term for those types of projects. And then we've added in Sports Boulevard, King Salman Park, Green Riyadh, and Al Ula to that list as well. What is the labor force required for completing these projects? Very good question. No one really knows, but I suspect there is actually a fairly, well, it's declining all the time, but there's still a fair surplus of labor in the kingdom, and certainly the companies I speak to are not overly concerned about labor. Yes, there will be a need to increase the number of labor, but I understand, talking to the market, that there is a still plentiful labor supply sources in South Asia, and now also, of course, Egypt's construction market is in the middle of a downturn, and there's a large number of Egyptian contractors, engineers, and of course laborers now moving into Saudi Arabia, especially given the weakness in the Egyptian pound. What's the prospect of Giga projects getting past phase one? Well, I think it's quite strong, to be honest, depending on the project and how big phase one is. If you look at Red Sea Global, they're already moving, well, nearing the end of their phase one and moving on to phase two fairly rapidly. I think you can argue Roshan is doing the same. And I think there's pretty good chance. As I said, it depends on the oil price, of course, and a number of other issues. As well as funding, of course, but suggestion is that yes, they'll be able to continue. The challenge really more is on the there's a delivery side where there's enough capacity to deliver. What are the expectations for 2024 in terms of Giga project announcements? Well, as I said, the last month or two has seen 4 new mega projects announced under the Giga projects program, and I fully expect next year to see even more. As I said, there are at least a dozen Giga projects in the pipeline, and we'll hear more about those, I'm sure, very soon. Some of them are very significant indeed, huge world-scale projects. Some of them even bigger than some of the ones have been announced already. Where's all the water going to come from for King Salman Park? Well, there's a lot. The focus really is on ensuring that all water used now is treated after consumption, and the treatment rates can still be expanded, and with better water conservation measures and better water treatment measures, a lot of the water is going to be reused, and it's going to be reused for irrigation purposes, and a lot of that will be used, of course, for the King Salman Park. Are there any basic materials which are potential bottlenecks for the delivery of the program? Yes, I mean there's challenges all over the place. Of course, cement, steel, pipes, cables are all going to come under strain. But the idea is that by extending the supply net globally, there will be opportunity for some of these clients to be able to source materials from around the world. Of course, there is very significant investment in manufacturing in the kingdom, particularly for products which aren't currently manufactured in Saudi Arabia. So there will be no doubt some bottlenecks, but over time the market should self-adjust to meet them. I think where there might be a challenge is in sustainable materials. If you're looking at things like green steel or green cement, then there are definitely going to be challenges about delivering those. I'm running out of time, so I'll just answer a few more questions. How is construction procured? Is it competitive bidding, service contract model, or some other method? I think it depends on the client, but generally, of course, most tenders are bid competitively, and we're seeing some more innovative contract terms being brought in, such as early contractor involvement in NEOM, for example, where the contractors are expected to also design in competition before being selected for the construction. If you take Red Sea Global, they've taken a construction management approach where they are not awarding the contracts to a general contractor, but instead awarding various smaller packages to suppliers and subcontractors directly. We may well, as the market tightens and heats up, we may well see some direct negotiations for contracts, or even a master partnering agreement between client and contractor. We will wait and see, and it depends on the tightness in the market. How accurate is the data provided by MEED? Hopefully pretty accurate. Bear in mind that the data that we provide you here in this presentation today is bottom-up data. That means it's based on thousands of individual contracts, which when you add them up, total up into some of the data you've seen today. So rather than what you normally see, which is a top-down sort of look at the projects market, you can substantiate each of the values by the individual projects themselves. And you can see on the MEED projects database, for example, that this data is created from literally thousands and thousands of projects. That is, if you're interested in actually what the individual projects are that constitute all of these projects, then I really would suggest looking at MEED projects. Someone has said that the polling is quite subjective, absolutely very subjective, but it's purely indicative of the mood of the audience and what they're thinking. It is of course not scientific, and is not going to be used in any scientific way. Purely really for interest for me and for everyone attending. On MEED projects, can we request to add a new field column to export Giga projects to identify related projects? Thank you for the question. And I should add that we do now have a Giga projects list of projects now on the MEED projects platform. On the homepage, you can click on the button to see all the Giga projects, as well as some other top lists, such as oil and gas mega projects and so on. So please check that out on the homepage of MEED projects. Can you provide the NEOM supply registration link? Just go to the NEOM main website and scroll to the bottom, and there is supplier registration or vendor registration. Simply click on that and it will take you to the registration page, where you then tells you what you have to do in terms of filling out the data. What's the best way to be a vendor for consultancy services on projects? Simply register with each Giga project client, and you will then be registered to receive tenders for the relevant amount of work. You can also keep track of who's winning each contract and approach them as well for whether they need some consultancy services, especially on design build projects. And this is where something like MEED.com or MEED projects come in really useful. You'll be able to see what contractors have won what contracts and when, and approach them ahead of time accordingly. Do I see any Japanese companies, manufacturers going into NEOM or Giga projects? Well, I was in Japan just a month ago with Red Sea Global, giving a roadshow presentation to Japanese companies about the opportunities in Red Sea Global for companies around the world, especially Japanese companies. I believe NEOM also went to Tokyo fairly recently as well. And this just goes to show just how keen these Giga project clients are to travel around the world to attract companies to their projects. This indicates there simply isn't enough companies currently in the market to deliver their projects, and they urgently require companies from around the world to come in and register and win work. Doesn't matter if you've ever worked in Saudi Arabia before, doesn't matter necessarily if you've got experience in the region, or even if you're registered in Saudi Arabia, or even if you want to do the services outside of the kingdom completely. By all means, simply register with each client, and you will be for sure in a very competitive position to receive tenders and win work. Question here: during a briefing in Seoul, it was mentioned that many of contracts are awarded through direct subcontracting method, not through PMCs or general contractors. Is this correct? So this method you're referring to, direct subcontracting or construction management approach, is really only used by Red Sea Global. Other clients have different procedures, but generally contracts are awarded to a large main general contractor or JV of general contractors, and then of course the usual system of awarding to subcontractors applies. But Red Sea Global, which is one of the more advanced of the Giga project clients in terms of delivery and completion, uses this sort of construction management approach, which is quite unique in that respect. Have you done other webinars for other GCC or MENA countries? Certainly have. Last month, we did a renewable energy webinar in the region. We have done oil and gas 2 months ago and rail 3 months ago. And next month, our webinar will be on the hydrogen market, another very hot topic in the GCC. So if you look on YouTube, you will find under MEED many different webinars recorded for different subjects. How do you see local content requirement affecting the procurement process? Well, so as you know, local content, there's local sourcing of materials and equipment within the kingdom is a big thing right now in Saudi Arabia, especially for government contracts. However, for some of these giga projects, it is certainly preferred to have more local content, but it's by no means always essential. It really does depend on the service or product to be supplied. But in many instances, projects simply can't be delivered within the kingdom. So take, for example, the luxury hotel pods, think for the Ritz-Carlton project, or it could be the St. Regis project on Red Sea Global, the Red Sea project. They are actually prefabricated in Sharjah in the UAE and then shipped over to Saudi Arabia. So even some sort of prefabricated equipment or buildings can be created or made outside of the kingdom and shipped in. We are finding difficulty in finding a registration link for the new Murabba project. It's true that some of the newer Giga projects actually don't even have websites up yet, or if they do have a website, it can be quite difficult to find. The client company for New Murabba is New Murabba Development Company, and if you Google search that, you should be brought to their New Murabba company page, where again there will be a link for you to register. The only Giga project company that we've talked about today that doesn't seem to have a website yet is the King Salman International Airport, but I'm sure one of those will be launched shortly. How do you see the regional headquarters office requirement affecting smaller businesses? So as many of you know, there was a sort of law or mandate issued a couple of years ago by the Saudis saying that by the beginning of 2024, all companies in the region should have their regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia if they wish to bid for government contracts. Now, there's been a lot of ambiguity and a little bit of confusion since then about whether to whom that applies and by when. Certainly for larger, big multinational companies active in the region, then they should certainly look to opening their headquarters in their regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia. It's not clear yet if it applies to smaller businesses or those not on a specified list issued by the government. And indeed, there are various exceptions to the situation. For example, if contracts are less than 1 million rials, if the services are performed entirely outside of the kingdom, or if the services cannot be provided in the kingdom. So there are various exceptions. I wouldn't be surprised if for smaller companies, this 2024 rule is relaxed or extended somewhat. There's an update here from someone saying there is a new project called Jebel West, the size of Madrid city, to be built on a 15 million square meter land with a total of 38 million square meter GFA, the largest ever single district cooling project as well. So there you are, just an example of, as I said, maybe an example of one of the large Giga projects which I said were in the pipeline still to come. Last question, is there any information on the New Murabba development? New Murabba was announced a few months ago. It is a massive, massive project. The northwest of Riyadh covers 19 square kilometers. If you imagine Dubai downtown covers 2 square kilometers, so absolutely massive project, New Murabba. There's been a number of earthworks, enabling works contracts already started, fencing contracts as well, already started on the project. So work is underway in New Murabba. And I understand that a couple of companies are already in negotiations for starting the basic works on the Mokab cube structure, which is of course the 400 by 400 by 400 meter central element of the New Murabba project. So it does seem to be moving ahead. And as I said before, simply register with New Murabba and you will no doubt get more information about the project, but also pre-qualify for future tenders. Given it's such an early stage, there is going to be plenty of opportunity for you. Okay, I'm afraid I cannot answer all of your questions. There's still Well, I think there's about 150 questions here, and I simply don't have the time, unfortunately, to answer them. What's happening to the North Pole project? So that's another one of the projects which is potentially a future Giga project. It's north of Riyadh near the airport, and it's likely to feature a 2-kilometer high tower, which you may well have read about in MEED as well. So there's, as I said, lots of rumors around some very large new projects across the kingdom as part of the Giga project program. So maybe next time I'm giving this presentation, I'll have some details for you, which you'll be able to hear about. But for now, I've well extended my time today. Thank you all for sticking around. I see there's still 500 people listening in. I thank you for your attention and for your questions. I'm sorry if I didn't answer all of them. And I hope you enjoyed this. You should have it in your emails already, and you should be able to watch it on YouTube next week. And that just leaves me to say thank you very much for your attention today. And I will see you all next month for the next webinar, which will be on hydrogen. Thank you very much and goodbye.